being lackluster.
Now, ask 100 so-called financial experts about what will happen in the new year, and you will get 100 different answers. But what does history tell us? Well, since 1950, after a robust year like we had in 2019, if history holds, 2020 could be another banner year. Joining me now from Los Angeles, financial expert and president and founder of Investors Advantage Corporation, John Grace. John, if we look back over the last 70 years following an incredible year like we had in 2019, the following year, history tells us, is pretty robust. It ain't bad. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 9% historically speaking. But even if it's around 6%, that 6% would still put the Trump administration to beat hands down the average of other presidents.
This is all true, Graham, and no question about it. And it's been a great year. It's just been phenomenal. But you know, what goes up does come down. And so what we're saying is you need to be able to play both sides of that fence. Whether you're playing tennis or whether it's going to be, volleyball, you've got two sides of the net and you have to play both sides. So I'm saying let's not be wildly optimistic. Let's be cautiously optimistic, because if we also look at history, Graham, let's say in 1998, I think we had 3 Fed rate cuts. 2019, we've had 3 Fed rate cuts. And let's remember, we were very buoyant, 99, 98, good times for all. Markets were up magnificently for the last half of that decade. And then, of course, in about 30 months, starting 2000, January, February, bottom falls out, NASDAQ's off 80%. So I don't want people to become overly complacent and not pay attention to what they can do to limit their losses.
You don't want them jumping out the windows right about now either, do you?
Well,
in other words, you're saying to be cautious, right? And as some people would say, maybe take some profits off the table. We're not a financial, kind of show, but we look at the big pictures. Do you agree with this assessment we just heard, that there's kind of a dual track in the economy going on? There's a financial track, and then there's kind of a real economic track, and that the two kind of run parallel, and that maybe they're going to intersect in 2020?
Well, I sure would like to see that happen, for them to intersect. And yes, there has been a parallel universe going on here. Top 1%ers, absolutely lights out. Magnificent. Recovery from 2009. Best you've ever seen. The rest of the world or the country, 90% of us, can't say that. And when we look at the wages, for example, we're all buoyant about how high wages are. But the first thing we should ascertain is what the impact of inflation has been and whether or not we're keeping up. And the answer is we're not. So you have folks who are just not doing as well as some other folks. And I would like to see that convergence take place so that everybody can enjoy the rising seas as opposed to just the very affluent.
But the good news about wages going up, and they are going up, the good news is the last report we're seeing is that wages for lower income workers are up. Somewhere in the neighborhood of more than 4%, and that's not bad because we're looking at inflation right now at 2%, so that's double what the inflation rate is. So that's good economic news overall.
Yes, but if we go back for the last 10 years and look at a broader big picture, if you will, for about 4 or 5 of those years, we went further negative.
Right.
It was 57,000. We went back to close to 50,000. So we have still not recovered. Let me say it to you another way. Housing prices, education costs, higher education costs,
right.
As far as healthcare is concerned, all way above the average inflation rate. And on average, the salaries have not kept up with inflation for the last
year. The good news is we're on the right track, and we're headed in the right direction. And it looks like but who knows what's going to happen politically in 2020? Everything's on the table at this point. But if we keep this track going, 2020 is looking to be a pretty good economic year. John, thank you.